After that night, Vidal hadn't contacted me in 3 years. Messaged me again. On? Spell Daddy helped me cut a slice. It turns out that the president also bows to life. And out of humanitarianists I cut for him. See the first single reduction. I also incidentally, and he spelled a single. The next day, the goods arrived. A little boy who looked 8 times like him knocked on my door. I just opened the door. He ran over and hugged me, shouting, "Mom." The neighbors all gave me strange looks. I'm not. Don't you scream. Vidal and I are together because of money. So it didn't last. After only 6 months, we broke up because his first love returned home. I took the money he gave me and enrolled myself in a dozen classes, determined to become a woman no one could afford. 3 years later I succeeded. Not only white skin and beautiful long legs. Against all odds to become a human high-quality woman. It's just that Vidal, who dumped me back then, actually sent me a message. Vidal, in? Spelled Addy to help me cut a knife. Me. The years I wasn't around Vidal. Was he having such a bad time? I can't believe I used spelled Addy. I helped him to cut a knife. Saw the first order reduction. By the way, to spell a single. There is no other meaning. Just simply want to see what the fallen president will buy. The next morning, I just opened the door and a little boy appeared at my door. He resembled Vidal 8 times, and called me as soon as he opened his mouth. Mom, the shout sent a shiver down my spine. I live in a neighborhood that gets a lot of morning walkers. And we all know how many people are in the neighborhood to our left and right. And the grandparents in the building look at me with strange eyes. In order to maintain my many years of high-quality female persona, I can only smile and say, "You silly child." Sister and brother-in-law went out to buy food. "You quickly come in." Saying that, I used my hands to gather the child into the house, closing the door with a bang, looking at the child's small nose, small eyes, like a scaled-down version of Vidal. There is no doubt that 100 is his seed. I asked with a kind face. "My little friend, who brought you to my house?" "Mama, don't you remember you spelled me with poop yesterday on top of spelled Addy?" I took out my cell phone and opened that link, and found that I really spelled a son with Vidal, and it also showed that it had arrived. The little guy looked at me with a toothy grin. I calmly hit the return button. This is definitely a new type of scam, or an acquaintance. I am a woman who is not married. Where to pop up such a big son? After so many years, Vidal actually wants me to be the receiver. No way. The phone shows that I can't return the goods. But I can't run away from the temple. I drove to Goose Company with my child to look for Vidal. The security guard stopped me just as I arrived at the company's entrance. "Miss, do you have an appointment?" I took off my big sunglasses, then pushed the child forward and pointed at him, saying, "See, this is Vidal, his son. I'm here to find him." The security guard didn't even look at the kid and said to me, "Go out and turn right. There is air conditioning in the ramen store over there." The security guard didn't even look at the kid and said to me, "Go out and turn right. There is air conditioning in the ramen shop over there." It was morning, the rush hour. A group of white-collar workers wearing small suits and carrying briefcases passed by me, hearing this side of the conversation, all with a strange look at me. It's really convincing. Nowadays women will do anything to pursue us, ADLI. And also the child. We ADLI. The moment she looked down and saw the child, the expression on her face was wonderful. The child happily greeted her. "Good morning, Auntie." The security guard also noticed the child at that moment and was shocked when he saw the face that resembled Vidal's 8 times. Then his attitude took a 180-degree turn. "Ma'am, what's your name? I'll call the front desk right away and make an appointment for you with ADLI." This is the age of the face. The security guard's efficiency was fast. And when the front desk lady came over, the expression of the child's gossip was not restrained as soon as she saw it. "Ms. Du, you are here to see ADLI, right? Ms. Du, you are here to see ADLI, right? You are Adli's ex-girlfriend, right? Uh-huh. This kid looks like he's 3 years old. And he looks just like Adli. So who does he look like if he's not his son? When the receptionist heard me say that, her mouth dropped open like an egg. This kind of expression of having eaten the first crop of melons belongs to the whole won't give me. What? Vidal doesn't deserve a child in the eyes of the staff? Great. Adli has not been close to women for so many years. Not even a single piece of file entering news. I have always thought that Adli is a gay. Ali is a gay. Realizing that she said the wrong thing, Miss Receptionist hurriedly closed her mouth and looked at me curtly. Ahead is the reception room. Mr. Adli is waiting for you inside. The receptionist's sister ran away in ashes after saying that. After 3 years, I finally saw Vidal. He was sitting in the boss chair. His well-tailored suit outlined his perfect figure. His bony hands tugging away at the tight-eyed around his neck with some annoyance. A few simple movements froze as he made them feel ascetic. I swallowed, cursing my lack of ambition. I've been single long enough to look at an ex-boyfriend and see that he looks good. At this time he also saw me. Mocking a smile, listened to the receptionist said. You brought a child over. Said it is my? What do you mean by saying the child is yours? This child is not yours? I picked up the child in my arms. And the two same Gucci handsome faces looked at each other. Why died? The child even happily called out. Dad. Vidal finally sat down and walked towards me. See why in day. Do you like me that much? To be able to get me back. Raising a child this big to come to me? Did you misunderstand something? Isn't this child the one you sent to my house? I took out my phone and tried to show Vidal the link. Only it disappeared into thin air. Looking at the empty chat log, I suddenly had some doubts that the link was a mistake on my part. There was no link. And there was no proof whatsoever that I hadn't given birth to this child. Vidal looked more and more indifferent. And in the bottom of his heart, he was sure that I brought the child over to threaten him. Say it. How much money do you want? What do you mean? How much money do I want? I want to give him a big mouth. The old woman is alone beautiful for so many years. Not even touched a man's small hand. Let alone pregnant. Maybe it was the doll's mistress, who dropped the baby on my doorstep. Now it's not a question of who the child is. It's already a matter of my innocence. My heart crossed. Directly pulling Vidal said, Go. Since you do not believe. Then we go to do paternity tests. I pulled Vidal and took the child to the identification center. After taking the sample, we waited outside for 3 hours. When the doctor came out, he first looked at the child and then at Vidal. I guess the two of them looked so much alike that he thought it was me who suspected that the child was not biological. Finally, he turned to me and said, This mom. After identification, the child is yours. Vidal gave a look like I'll see what else you're up to. No way. I was never even pregnant. How could I have a baby? My voice was too loud. The people around me threw me strange gazes. Vidal frowned and took me out of the identification center. On the way back to the office, I looked at the child sitting beside me and fell into a deep thought. 3 years after our breakup, a child of mine and Vidal's appeared out of nowhere. I, CY and Day, experienced painless motherhood at the age of 26. Vidal took me to Gu's house. We sat at the dining table, a dozen meters long, and stared at each other. Say, what's your purpose? His words were spiritual. What purpose could I have? Didn't I just come over to give him the baby and somehow got myself involved? The child is yours. Since I sent it over, I'll go back. I got up and prepared to go home. This whole day was like a dream to me. If I'm guilty, please God punish me instead of suddenly bumping into a son calling me mom. Just before I reached the door, the man's big hand pulled me down. You left. What about the child? The child also tugged on the corner of my coat with his little hand. Mama, don't you want Quintus? The child even thought of his own name. The two of them pulled me down. And I really couldn't leave for a while. I had no choice but to sit back down. Vidal and I discussed how to deal with the child. No matter how I explained, he didn't believe that the child was spelled out by his father. When Vidal got impatient in the back, he said, "Then spell another one out now and I'll believe you." I looked at my phone and scrolled through every dialog box and couldn't find that strange link. Just as we were still wrestling with the baby question, a young woman walked in. As soon as she saw Quintus, she took the baby into her arms. Grandma's precious grandson, yo. Seeing her action, Vidal had a headache and held his forehead. "Mom, why are you here? Why can't I come? If the maid at home hadn't told me that you brought the baby back, I wouldn't even be able to see the little baby right now." I was surprised to see Gu's mother sip Quintus again. I looked at Gu's mother in surprise. I didn't think Vidal's mom would be so young. Gu's mother was holding the baby in the center. Vidal was on the left and I was on the right. We sat at the dining table in a triangle position. The three of us were silent for a long time. And finally Gu's mother whispered, "Since you have a child, why don't you two get married with a baby?" "No way." I refused without even thinking. What kind of joke is this? Just because of a child of unknown origin, I want to marry Vidal. Vidal didn't say anything, just silently scrutinizing me. Seeing that the atmosphere between the two of us was not good, Quintus hugged Gu's mother and cried in a low voice. Quintus does not want to poop apart. When a child cries, people of Gu's mother's age can't stand it. And she looks at Vidal with hatred. You don't want the girl whose family is bankrupt. You don't want your first girlfriend to return to China. And now your ex-girlfriend is coming to your door with a child. And you still don't want it. What? Are you special as a president? Don't Vidal really belongs to the special category. For example, now against Gu's mother's dislike, he can still pick up the conversation with a calm face. "Mom, have you read too many romance novels?" Gu's mother said. "You don't know shit. You're the president and you don't have a heart." Vidal can't make sense. Gu's mother then looked at me. "CY&day. Give you $1 million. How about being my daughter-in-law in the Gu family?" I get it. Gu's mother is indeed deeply poised and by the novel. I, CY&day, am a person of principle. How can I bow down to money? Mother Gu added another $1 million, $2 million. I still didn't let go. She was still torn between how much was the right price to offer. Vidal, who was next to me, suddenly looked at me and said, $50 million. CY&day. I know you've had a good life in recent years. I looked at Vidal with some surprise. What did he mean by that? After breaking up, he still spies on me. Is it because I'm not doing well that he's still bringing his first love to taunt me? Luckily I've had a good time these past 3 years and he's not with his first love. Money makes the world go round. And money can make me choose to become a mom painlessly. Under their gaze, I slowly nodded my head. Okay. $50 million deal. I became Vidal's nominal wife. I don't have to work my ass off to bring up a baby. And I don't have to karma waste to his first love. I can also take his money and go out with my girlfriends to keep fresh meat. I'm not a money G-rubber. I'm a money G-rubber. But when God opens a door for you, he will close a window. One day, I was feeding Quintus at work and Vidal was working next to me. A woman proudly barged into Vidal's office. The door was suddenly opened. Quintus was so scared that his fruit got stuck in his throat, and he coughed vigorously. While I was trying to smooth out the child's breath, I yelled, "Will you not knock when you come in?" The front desk lady also followed in, and apologized to me. "I'm sorry, ma'am." This young lady rushed straight in. And the security guard and I didn't stop her. The security guard and the receptionist tried to pull the woman who rushed in out. "This lady, please get out. This is the president's office. You guys let go of me. I'm ATLI's friend." This voice. Hearing the familiar female voice, I couldn't help but look up. Sure enough, it was Vidal's first love. Kaizuko. She struggled desperately. Meow. You really don't forgive me? The moment I heard that, I knew there was a story between the two. There is indeed something between Kaizuko and Vidal. When Vidal was in college, he didn't like to talk, and it was Kaizuko who unlocked his heart. So Kaizuko, the central air conditioner, became Vidal's little sunshine. Vidal chased after her for a year, but failed to catch up, and was also stood up by Kaizuko, who went straight to study abroad for 4 years. Then he gave up on himself, and went clubbing every day. That's when I met him. I went to great lengths to be his little sunshine. But when I saw Kaizuko's face, which was similar to mine, I really couldn't hold it together. I thought I was a winner in life. But I was really Kaizuko's double. Let go of her. Vidal, sitting in his boss chair, slowly spoke out. This man is still defending his first love. I suddenly feel a little uncomfortable in the bottom of my heart. Kaizuko sits on the small sofa looking at me with a smug look on his face. I honestly feed the baby. After Quintus swallowed his rice in one bite, he whispered to me, Mama, this auntie is so annoying. Let Poopy kick her out. I raised my eyebrows. A child who eats is a good boy. I'm not stupid. I'm just a titular madame. It's not like I'm going to bite when I see a woman near Vidal. Meow. I know it's wrong. I will never leave you behind again. Just forgive me. Kaizuko had a look of watering eyes that would hurt anyone who saw it. As expected, Vidal was no exception. His cool voice resounded in the office. I haven't blamed you. Kaizuko showed a hint of joy on her face, and looked at me provocatively, as if to say, 3 years ago you could not defeat me. 3 years later you are still my defeat. If you can tolerate it, you can't tolerate it. Shit. Money is small. Face has to be earned back. I put down the feeding spoon, and then slowly walked to Vidal. Hubby, I worked hard to bring you a child, and this is how you treat me? Who the hell is this woman? Tears were welling up in my eyes. My tiny baby teeth were biting my lower lip, and I saw Vidal's sexy knot in his throat slide up and down. The man was swallowing, and I mentally smiled. No one knew Vidal better than I did. You know, that's what got me over the hump back in the day and onto this man's side. Stop it. The man's low, husky voice rang out. He was speaking to me. Kaizuko looked at me with hatred, and seeing that the trick was not working, he walked to his desk and dumped a stack of photos on the table. You watery woman. You don't deserve to be with River. Good lord. The table was full of pictures of me drinking with fresh meat over the last 3 years. I felt like the air froze all of a sudden. Vidal looked at me with very cold eyes. I couldn't help but feel a little weak. But on second thought, we weren't married in the first place. So there's nothing wrong with this. Right? Meow. This woman is not suitable for you. Kaizuko just said. Quintus rushed over. Blocked in front of me. Bad woman. Away from my mama poop. I was touched for a moment in my heart. Although the child was not born to me, but really very protective of me. Quintus. Don't be afraid, sister is not a bad person. Kaizuko pretended to be a kind big sister and squatted down, wanting to touch Quintus' head. She was stopped by Vidal when she reached halfway. Kaizuko called out with great affection, and I got goosebumps from listening to her. Have you finished? You can leave when you're done. Vidal's cold voice rang out. Not only Kaizuko froze. I also looked at Vidal in surprise. Saying goodbye to the first love. The president's stares flowed? Could it be that Vidal doesn't like his first love anymore? Meow. Have you forgotten our previous moments? Kaizuko's eyes were filled with resignation. I sat and stared at the photo on the table. Then realized that Quintus was also staring. I subconsciously reached out my hand and covered the child's eyes with a childish grin. Vidal saw my action with a mocking look on his face. What? You still know that this will bring the child down? I was a bit unconvinced and was about to argue with Vidal. But Quintus in my arms grabbed the palm of my hand that was covering his eyes. Bubba. Quintus is fine. Don't fight. Vidal glanced at Quintus, who knew what he was doing, and didn't say anything else. Then he looked at Kaizuko next to him. Have you seen enough? If you've seen enough, then get lost. Obviously this is to transfer the anger on her. 1 sentence to go. 1 sentence to get lost. Kaizuko stared wide-eyed. A pair of beautiful eyes looking at Vidal flooded with tears. Crying, Amiao, how can you do this to me? You will regret it. After saying that, he turned around and left. It is true that the first love is different. When you turn around, your hair is all theater, and it makes a beautiful arc in the air. Luckily I stood far away, and wasn't thrown. Just walking to the door, Kaizuko stopped again. This woman does not deserve to be with Amiao. After saying that, she left with determination, not taking a cloud with her. I smiled awkwardly towards Vidal. So what? I'll take Quintus home. Only after taking 2 steps. Vidal pulled my arm down. CY&A. Aren't you going to give me an explanation? What explanation? I pretended I didn't see the picture on the table. It was a picture of me reaching out and slapping the fresh meat sass with a very lewd expression on my face. Help. How is this Kaizuko so good at taking pictures? Can I say youthful ignorance? Vidal glanced at me without saying anything. I thought that was the end of the matter. I didn't expect that a few days later, photos of Quintus and I appeared in all the major newspapers. It swept across the internet. The headlines above the newspapers were also very outrageous. Mysterious woman surprises Goo group. A single mom running with a ball actually involves so many hidden agendas? Late at night to support the young fresh meat. Rich woman's day is really how rotten. After being on the popular and on the top list, it exploded on all the major platforms. After a careful comparison of the network keyboard warrior, it was found that the protagonists are all the same person. Caused another wave of heat. No one hammered this melon to death, and it didn't have much impact on my life. Let others blow and sing. Doesn't it smell good for me to be my president's wife? But Kaizuko posted a video to kick the story into high gear. Said she was Vidal's first love and showed a picture of them together in college back then. Said I'm the female sea king who raised a whole fish pond but still has to die to be by Vidal's side and not leave. There is a lot of controversy on the pop-up screen. Sister, did you go abroad to move the knife? This child looks like a DLI's child. Look at these small eyes and small nose. Maybe the couple is playing with each other. I'm afraid you want to be on top. Right? I have to say that our current generation of netizens is very good. The first time I saw the movie, I was so excited to read it. 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 After reading I was very excited to comment below. Bookstore without your book. Smash. I'm not sure if you know what I mean. Kaizuko stole the chicken but failed to get the rice. And played himself into the ground. And the comment I posted was also picked up by passersby as the main owner. And there were a bunch of people underneath to make a fuss. They said they wanted to be adopted by me. Not to mention being touched. Or becoming the smallest fish in the fish pond they are also willing. I was silent after reading the online news. Going back to look at the picture of the Grobtas. It had a close-up on the newspaper and a special red circle. Very eye-catching. I was a little speechless. Now my little fetish was known to the netizens. Someone else got bored and set up a posting bar called something like searching for lost young men. A bunch of people commented that it was their own ass. Business at the bar was booming for a while. And a new business was launched. Those who get it. In fact, in a sense, I drove the nightlife chain and stimulated consumption. That's a good thing. But I can't stop laughing at the thought that I'm the one who got hurt. Kaizuko really doesn't do personnel. That morning Vidal stopped me on my way out the door just after breakfast. Have you read the papers lately? I thought to myself. This man is not going to come after me. Is he? No, I don't read the newspaper at all. I said a little weakly. Killed not to say that I read it. The man gave me a suspicious look. Then you should pay more attention when you send Quintus to school these days. I nodded my head vigorously like a chicken pecking at rice. I didn't expect Vidal's words to come true so quickly. I had just sent Quintus to kindergarten. When I got back to the parking lot, I noticed scratched paint, flat tires, and all sorts of paint sprayed obscenities. I raised an eyebrow and looked around. Finally, I searched the corner and found a few punk-looking social youths. They looked at me with mocking faces. Seeing that I was still looking at them, they said viciously, "What are you looking at? Can't beat them. I'll bear." Called the maintenance store to tow the car. I myself can only take it axi to recall home. Just the keys are not even inserted into the lock. The teacher called. Said Quintus in the school to beat classmates' cry. The reason was that the classmate called Quintus a foundling and Mama a scoundrel. When I rushed to the kindergarten, Quintus was still confronting a fat kid. The other party is also the mother. Pointing at Quintus cursed, "Really, what kind of mother born what kind of child? Fierce and unreasonable." He even reached out and pushed Quintus. My first reaction was to run over and hold the child, who was about to fall in my arms. Seeing me, the parent was a little weak, but his mouth was still unforgiving. Taking the family's money, fooling around on their own, and the child being taught to be like this slap. I stood up and directly slapped that parent's face. Everyone froze, and I put Quintus to the side for fear of hurting him later with my hands. It didn't matter if the group bullied me. Why should a child so young be treated like that? And this person just made a move. If not for me coming in time, Quintus would have been bullied. Thinking of this, I coldly looked at the other parent. "Come on. You go on." That fat kid's mom touched her face and looked at me incredulously. Then she rushed towards me with her teeth and claws open and shouted, "How dare you hit me? She is a 160 pounds. The female teacher can't pull it at all. I am not a vegetarian if she wants to do it. At least I have worked out for 3 years. Rolling up my sleeves is dry. Twisting." I slapped her several times. The sound is very crisp. 3 or 2 times to slap her confused. She looked at me, froze for a moment, covered both sides of her face, turned her head and cried out, "Teacher, she hit me." That was good. Another cry. When Vidal arrived, I was sitting in the far corner holding Quintus. I looked a little worse for wear because of the altercation that had just taken place. My hair and clothes were torn and disheveled. He walked quickly towards me and inquired with concern, "Are you and the baby okay?" It was a simple inquiry. But I suddenly cried. I hugged Quintus and cried harder than across the room. The whole office was quiet. The opposite parents opened their mouths without saying anything, but they were blocked by my crying. They all stared at me in disbelief. Vidal held me in his arms and whispered, "Let's go home first." The parents saw us leaving and quickly chased after us. This can't. My wife and son were beaten like this. You can't just leave like this, right? Just Vidal held me and said in a cold voice, "Didn't you see her crying? Get out of the way." The parent was scared and took a few steps backward, and didn't dare to chase up again. Under the crowd's gaze, Vidal took me and left. When we got into the car, he saw that I was still wiping my tears, and slowly said, "No one. You can stop pretending." I slowly put down my hand that was wiping my tears and pulled out a mirror from my pocket to organize my appearance. "That's right. I cried. I pretended. Otherwise it would have been another tangled mess just now." That group of people were all pretty unreasonable. There was no point in wasting time on them. Because of this incident, Vidal was very angry and vigorously bloodied the major newspapers. If they couldn't suppress it, they just wrote a warning letter to the lawyers. Of course, this alone was not enough to quell his anger. That day Izuko came to Vidal's office again. She was all dressed up today and sat next to me on purpose. "Do you know who asked me to come here?" She whispered to me with a big smile on her face. I poured her a cup of tea, pretending a few minutes to prostrate to do small meaning. She immediately went cross. "It's useless for you to beg me now. Your reputation sucks. You don't deserve to be the mistress of the Gu family." Only after hearing these words, Vidal was a cold eye sweeping over. He looked at Kaizeko and said word for word, "Ms. Zhang, I think you are mistaken." Saying that, Vidal pulled me up from the sofa and swept me into his arms. Whether it is the Gu family or me, Vidal, there is only CY and day her. After saying that, he kissed me again in front of Kaizeko. The man's handsome face zoomed in front of my eyes. My whole body stiffened in surprise. And I didn't know where to put my hands. This man clearly didn't say that. Didn't he say that he would only let Kaizeko know what to do and suffer a little? Why are you suddenly kissing me? Facing this unexpected dog food, Kaizeko could no longer hold herself together. The delicate makeup cracked on her face as she reached out and tried to pull me away from Vidal's arms. Only the security guards guarding the doorway didn't give her a chance to make a move and held her down. The young lady should not get excited. But how could Kaizeko not get agitated? Yelling loudly, "You, a woman who fools around outside, don't deserve to be the mistress of the Gu family. Only I deserve to stand beside Damiao." One hearing these words, Vidal was finally willing to bestow a look on her. "Today, I invited you here to tell you that deliberately smearing the Gu family's mistress. The lawyer's letter has already been submitted to the court. You'd better get ready for the trial." Vidal's indifference was something Kaizeko hadn't expected. She sat on the ground in despair and stared at Vidal with wide eyes. This man was too cruel. A lawsuit against the Gu family. She couldn't even think of. Ever since Vidal kissed me that day, I always feel like I've been weird lately. Like the way he gets up early every morning and makes breakfast for Quintus and me in his apron. And telling stories by the bed to put Quintus to sleep. Obviously he was doing these things before. Now I just see him as very handsome and secure in my eyes. When I came out of my room in the morning, I saw Vidal standing in the kitchen with a spatula in his hand. And the sunlight pouring on him made him look very gentle throughout. Damn. I actually had a twinge of inexplicable heartburn. I felt like if this kept up, Vidal and I might have to resurrect our relationship. But I can't get over the fact that this baby came out of nowhere. Maybe Vidal set me up. With this thought in mind, I deliberately kept my eyes open. And I really found a hint of something wrong. Vidal seemed to leave work early every Friday and took Quintus out to play. As for where they went, I had no idea. This day they went out again. I followed them quietly in my car. It was a woman they both went to see. The woman was very young and pretty, and was sitting on a park bench holding Quintus in her arms. There was some resemblance between the two. And there was no doubt that she was Quintus' mother. So it's Quintus' real mother who's back. I didn't know what to feel in the bottom of my heart. And I didn't have the courage to rush over and expose them. I went back to Gu's house and cleaned myself up. Then looked at the house that I had tittied up. Suddenly, I felt that this was a joke. 3 years ago, I was Kaizoto's double. 3 years later, I was tricked by Vidal into becoming a mom again. This makeshift family is disgusting. Vidal brought Quintus home in the evening, carrying a big bag of children's clothes, which was bought by that woman. I sat on the couch with a cold look on my face, and the two of them probably noticed that my mood was off. Quintus sat beside me with some fear. "Mama, what's wrong with you?" Thinking that he also called that beautiful woman Mama during the day. My heart was blocked very hard. "Quintus, do you call me alone Mama? Or is there another woman that you also call Mama?" When father and son heard this, they froze. Seeing their reaction, I was even more certain about the scene I saw today. Quintus definitely has more than just me as a mama. I went back to my room in silence to pack my bags. This place I don't want to stay for a second anymore. Anything that was fake would only make me feel stupid as a pig and fooled by them. Father and son. Seeing me actually packing, Vidal panicked. He pressed my hand and said eagerly, "CY and day. We still have an agreement. Don't you want that $50 million? I gave him a cold look, only feeling that I had never hated him so much. Obviously I was about to walk out of that previous relationship. But he used another way to tie me down. Quintus is actually my brother and sister-in-law's child. said Vidal suddenly. Quintus also hid in the corner and shouted, "Little auntie, don't fight with Uncle Junior." I was the one who gave him the idea. It's just that right now, I don't even want to see the two of them acting. Let go. I shook off the man's hand with force. To hell with the child, and the money. After I left the Gu family, I resumed my life as a refined single aristocrat. I did my nails. I went to bars. I went wherever the action was. But I always felt that something was missing. My thoughts drifted to Vidal from time to time. What is this man doing now? My best friend, seeing me in such a state of disorientation, found some fresh meat and threw a party at her house. I get pulled over and back away desperately at the sight of a room full of bare-chested men. My girlfriend looked at me with displeasure. "CYNDA. You don't marry someone once and then degenerate. What's so good about that, Vidal?" She was carrying wine in her hand, obviously drunk. I was a bit scared and said, "Why don't we meet again some other time? If you leave today, we won't contact each other in the future. People around us were pariahs. There is no way. I can only serve a cocktail. Find a corner in the room, and sit down, so no one should annoy me. It's just that sis is really too charming. Hiding in the corner, there are people staring at me. The lighting in here was a bit dim, and I drank a lot of cocktails in one sitting, and by the time someone sat down next to me, I was already a bit dizzy. The person sat next to me and didn't say anything, just stared at me. I was a bit offended. "What are you looking at? Haven't you ever seen a good woman? You are drunk," said the man. Took the glass of wine in my hand. I drank some wine, snatched back my own glass, and then poured wine. "I'm not drunk. Don't mind me." Just the wind did not even pick up. A pair of strong big hands held me in my arms. I struggled and accidentally slapped the man's butt. It seems to be quite perky. I'm a person who doesn't have a lot of favorites. I'm just good at it. I looked at the man with mesmerized eyes. "How about sis adopting you?" The man's low voice rang. "Good is my body price is a little expensive. You may not be able to support." A ringing familiar male voice. I scared a jolt. Suddenly wine are awake half. The man holding me is really Vidal. I was betrayed by my best friend. And when Vidal carried me away, she was still shouting behind me to wish me happiness. "Ah shucks, money grubbing friend." I was carried on Vidal's shoulders the whole way, the night breeze waking up the drunkenness in me. "Let me down." I squirm a little. "This position is too uncomfortable." Vidal's cold voice came out. I struggled on his shoulders, but in the end he let me down for fear that I would fall. I stood next to Vidal, my hand resting on his body, and mocked. "What? IDL, I regrets lying to me?" Regretted. As early as 3 years ago, when I broke up with you, I already regretted saying that I don't love you, Vidal said while pulling me into his arms. My nose turned sour and uncontested tears came out. "Dog man. Lied to me for so long. Want me to forgive you? No way." Yuck, my two small fists kept hammering Vidal's chest. He didn't stop me either, letting me punch and kick him. At the end of the day, he even whispered, "I was wrong. No matter how you hit me, I will never hit you back. Go home with me. Okay?" I was in a bit of a trance. I had been waiting for these words for 3 years. I made a pact with Vidal. He is not allowed to lie to me in the future, not to refute me, and to follow me in everything. I then followed him to Gu's house. Gu's mother was sitting on the couch in the hall, while Quintus was being held by a young couple that looked like they should be Vidal's sister-in-law and brother. Just as I entered, Gu's mother waved at me. "CYNDA. Come to me." A young man next to her somewhat impatiently pulled her back and took her into his arms. Gu's mother looked at him with great displeasure. "Gu Ting, let go of me. I'm going to see CYNDA. Get off my back." The man's appearance is very similar to Vidal's, and it looks like he's prolif. I was shocked once again. Don't the elders of the Gu family ever get old? When he sat down, Quintus was still looking at me with some fear. Anti is not angry with Quintus? The child was so cute that it melted my heart. I pinched Quintus's cheeks and said softly, "No. It's all your uncle's fault. He's incapable of chasing after his girlfriend. And he needs you to help him as a wingman." Quintus laughed so hard that he couldn't see his teeth. Vidal and I went public with the news of our marriage. And Quintus became the flower girl at our wedding. Vidal explained that this was his cousin's and sister-in-law's child. The rumors that had been circulating on the internet were all over the place. On the wedding day, Vidal held my hand and stood in front of the priest. "CYN day. I will die for you. Will you die for me?" I was a bit touched. After all, people are what stay with you for life. Vidal actually uttered such a vow. Looking at the ring on my ring finger, I happily replied, "I am willing." The two of them embraced each other tightly.